Hi, embroidery friends. I'm Eileen Roche, founder of Dime, and I'm thrilled to bring you another episode of Between Friends. Thanks for joining me today. I've been reading your comments, like Marjorie Hirschberger. She said she just bought the Sally tomato pressing station, and what a difference it's made in her bag making. I love hearing that. And next week, Marjorie, we're going to be talking all about bag making. So make sure you tune in then. And all these other folks. We have Lisa from Mississippi and Anna from Washington State, Star Raymond, nice to have you here again from Michigan, and Jewel in South Carolina. We have somebody from Puyallup. I've been there, up in the beautiful northwest corner of our country, and Tammy in Saratoga Springs. Well, that's not Tammy, that's Tracy in Scottsdale, but here's Tammy from Saratoga Springs. Haven't been there, would love to visit in that beautiful part of our country. And here's our OML gang. You know, Sue Brown's going to be with me next week, and we'll be excited to chat with her and reveal next week. We'll reveal the on-house project for the month. At the end of today's program, I will reveal this week's free design, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Today, we're going to talk all about embroidery disasters, you know, something that we hate to have happen in our sewing rooms, and yet it does. No matter how experienced we are, how passionate we are about the project, catastrophes can happen. And I used to say that a catastrophe or an embroidery disaster never happens until you are absolutely invested in the project. When you've fallen in love with it, when you've spent a lot of time and resources on the project, that's when you have a problem. So, hello, Joanne Banco. Nice to have you with us. All of you know Joanne Banco from Let's Go Sew. It's always a delight to have you here. And, you know, we learn from Joanne all the time, right? I know many of you do too. And Carolyn Booth, you're in sunny South Texas. I'm in sunny North Texas, and boy, it's hot. It's 93 today in September. Who would have known? So I guess we can go ahead and get started. You know, everybody's maybe top 5 embroidery disasters may be different. These are my top 5, and I would imagine that you have stumbled across one of these at one time or another in your embroidery experience. Thread shedding, shredding. I'll put that R in there where it shreds. Oh, I hate that. Fabric caught under the hoop. Most certainly this has happened to me more than once. In fact, it once happened to me live on, well, not live, but on Sewing with Nancy. Oh my goodness, did we chuckle after that. We were relieved that no viewers were able to see it because, you know, PBS wasn't live at that time and on Sewing with Nancy, but this happened in the hoop, and due to camera and so forth, it wasn't recognizable to the viewer, thank goodness. So we got away with that, but, you know, happens to the best of us. So sometimes we forget to remove a target sticker or a template and stitch right over it. Very frustrating. And typos. You know, I often say I can't find a typo until it's stitched. Even if I'm creating it in the software myself or on the machine lettering features built into the machine, I don't see the typo till it's stitched. But anyway, I'm sure that's happened. Fabric falling into the hoop. This happens more often, you know, than we think it will. And it happens more often than we want it to, for sure. So I find the 2 times that it happens most to me is with quilting and with t-shirts or onesie embroidery. So I'll give you some hints on how to, you know, offer you some solutions on how to do that. Let's see. And Joanne Banco, she says, needle breaks while recording for TV, the foot falls off, been there. Oh, yeah. Those of us who have done a lot of video have some funny stories about taping. And I know one time I was on HGTV and I was taping. This is out in Burbank. And, you know, it's pretty fast out there, right? So you don't have a lot of practice. You don't have a lot of, they set up the set and then you just come in and you sit down and you start to sew, right? So, which I did. But I'm a little person. So when I sat down, they're like, oh, she's so short. So they made all these changes. And then I sat down and I start to sew, but I can't reach the foot pedal. So that was a problem. I'm under the table with my foot dancing around trying to find it. Oh, goodness. Anyway, silly stories. Let's see, Lisa Gerantano, she has forgotten the Target stickers. We usually catch them in time. Yeah, it's all about catching them in time for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so let's take a look. Our program today, probably no surprise, is brought to you by Stitch Ripper. This is such a handy tool to have in your sewing room. And it's kind of like auto insurance, right? Hopefully you never need it, but you're really grateful when you have it if you do need it. So that's how we feel about Stitch Ripper. So let's talk about thread shredding. Let me get that R in there. So thread shredding. I hate that. This image, isn't this one of the most frustrating things in your embroidery experience? And you almost don't know why. There's lots of first steps to take, or, it could be the needle, it could be the thread, it could be, it can be the thread, number one. So the best defense for that is to select a quality thread. Absolutely. And, we stand by our exquisite thread here. That's the brand that we love. And we are very confident that it will not be shredded on Baby Lock, Brother, Janome, Bernina, Viking, or Pfaff. And so we have had fabulous experience with that. And that's all we use for sure. So let's see, stitch length. You may find that surprising, but many times it's a thread shredding can occur because the stitches are too short. Now, if you have software, you can change that. So here, let's bring that up full screen, Sam, please, so they can get a better look at that. So I'm in Perfect Embroidery Pro. This feature is also in My Quilt Planner and My Quilt Embellisher, Word Art and Stitches, where you have an embroidery design, obviously. And then when you select the embroidery design, and in the properties box, go to the Run tab. So you can see the Run tab there is where the number 1 is. You just click on that, and that's where you'll find the stitch length. So this embroidery design, this quilting design was 1.5. That's tiny to go through a quilt sandwich. We're talking top fabric, batting, and backing. So it's just too tiny to have the needle penetrate so close together on a quilt sandwich. So just with, changing the length of the stitch, just type it in 2.4, maybe 2.6, and click apply, then I didn't have any problem whatsoever stitching out that design. No more thread shredding. But it could be you have the wrong needle in. And I know my good friend Deborah Jones that's probably her first thing to go to is, do I have the right needle in? And, it makes a big difference. So you need to select the right size and type because they come in many different sizes and 2 different types. So let's take a look at, a needle. You all know that upper portion is the shaft that's inserted into the machine. Then we have the blade, the groove, the eye, and the point. Now the sizes, they come 65-9 is tiny, 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 tiny. So that's for fine thread sizes. Maybe a 60 weight thread that we use for lettering would require a smaller needle. 7511 is probably the most common used. That is probably what I would use for a quilt sandwich. And then the 8513 is for heavier fabrics. And also that would accommodate larger threads. And then 9014 is the heaviest blade side. So that's where you're going to stitch into canvas, like your tote bags. If you're doing any caps or hats, that's the type of needle, the size of needle that you will select. And so Mary Lou says, also, have you been using the same needle for too long on too many projects? That's a great point, Mary Lou, because Nancy Zeman, I used to always recommend that you change the needle with every project. Well, that may be a little overkill in today's high quality needles. They come in such strong metal materials. So, but you don't want to use the same needle. Like I just finished a quilt the other day. And so I quilted a whole quilt, 60 inches wide by 80 inches tall. I'm going to toss that needle out afterwards. I never had a thread break because I used exquisite thread, and I never had a needle break, but that's probably past its prime, that needle. So I'll toss that for sure. Thanks for bringing that up, Mary Lou. That was great. So let's see. Carol Bowser said to slow the machine down. I guess so. But you know what? I think that your thread should be of a high enough quality to sustain the machine speeds that we're allowed to stitch, right? So like these embroidery machines today stitch 1,000 stitches a minute. And they're programmed, they're designed to withstand that speed. And you also should know, though, in an embroidery design, your machine is not going to stitch every stitch at 1,000 stitches per minute. It will stitch what it can at 1,000 stitches. And so what it can is probably fills, right? Because it's just going to travel back and forth really quickly. Maybe some long satin columns it will do at the highest speed. But when it's doing intricate small work, small areas, it's not going 1,000 stitches a minute. So no problem with, attempting to control thread shredding with slowing the needle down. Slowing the machine down. But that's not what I normally do. And so let's see. Okay, so what else? Well, we talked about needle size. Now we need to talk about needle type. And there literally are, I think this is so funny, right? To use a sharp needle. Well, we want them all to be sharp, right? Of course. But sharp really is describing the type of point, meaning it comes to a really sharp point, where a ball point is a little rounded. You can see there in the image on the right, it's not as pointy as it is on the sharp on the left. So I find that, and on Deborah Jones's recommendation in her compass, she tells us that the light ball point should always be used for stretchy fabrics, and that the sharp is for woven. So I follow that recommendation as a Bible, and it has served me very well, and I'm sure it will serve you well also. And Jeanette, you said you should, you've read where you should change the needle every 8 hours. That is great advice. It is. However, I don't, what was 8 hours, right? I have a hard time reading remembering how many hours have been on that needle. I guess you could write it down, but it is a rule of thumb for sure. Okay, let's see. Barbara Jones says she's read that the thread will shred if your embroidery foot is set too high. I believe that is true because that interferes with the stitch making. So where the top thread meets the bobbin thread and makes the actual stitch. So these machines today have default settings. I would go with the default settings. Some machines have fabric sensors and will change the height of the foot. So, read your machine manual and see what they recommend about sewing foot height. It's good to be knowledgeable about the best way to use your sewing foot height to your advantage. And, that information would be in your manual for sure. So let's see. Okay, so let's see. Mary Clara says, she's talking to another friend, and I do like this. If you see me with the ripper, it's not good. It's not a good time. Absolutely. What my kids, they kind of knew, if I had a seam ripper in my hand, don't go asking if they can go to the movie, or heaven's sakes, can I drive them there, right? So let's see. And Joanne Banco, she says, yes, the machine can go bonkers when the foot is set too high on those that have the adjustments. And the reverse would be true too, right? So Joanne, if it's set too low, you're going to see fabric bunching up underneath the foot. You're going to have, drag on the fabric if it's set too low. So pay attention to that. And, just always depend on your manual. The manufacturers know better than we do, for sure. Let's see. Lisa also says that her machine says 8 hours for oil also, but she never keeps track. So she goes by sound or if the needle breaks. Okay, well, that's a good rule of thumb. It is good to know the sound of your machine. And I know the sound of my machines. I can tell when there's too much lint in the bobbin case. I can tell when my multi-needle needs that drop of oil that I'm supposed to put in there every day. And truth be told, I don't put in there every day. But I know that if I'm having a lot of thread breaks on a multi-needle and I haven't oiled, I put that oil in first before I do anything else. And that usually helps the problem. Okay, so we have someone who Lisa wants us to repeat what we said about the needles. So let's go ahead. I'll go back a slide and just show you the different needle sizes that are available to all of us. So really small. Now, so the smaller the number, the lighter the blade. 65.9 is for microfiber, fine fabrics, and then for thread, it's fine thread sizes, like a 60 weight thread. 75.11, 80.12 are the most commonly used sizes, and they are great for, like Deborah says here, for a wide range of fabric types. Then as your thread or fabric weight is increased, go with a heavier needle. Go with a heavier needle for sure. And then there are two different types of needles. So if you buy needles that just say embroidery needle, then you should know that that needle is a light ballpoint. It is not a sharp needle. It's kind of an industry-wide known usage that embroidery needle means light ballpoint. But here at Dime, we sell them as sharp and ballpoint, so they're easily identified. And the sharps are for woven fabrics, like your cotton quilting fabrics, and your ballpoint is for stretchy fabrics such as knits, moisture wicking fabrics, even some leather goods, because leather is kind of stretchy. So, our compass that Deborah has created, boy, that's where you're going to find all the answers to these questions. So you find your fabric. Here we have a terry cloth. She tells me that we're going to need a layer of firm tearaway. And then she tells me exactly what size needle I'm going to need to stitch that design. So I hope you have one of these in your sewing room. I have one in this sewing room, and I have one in my sewing room at home for sure. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I hope that I answered that for you. Let's see. Why don't machines want you to oil them? I think that's what you're asking, Carol, right? So, the many machine manufacturers have designed their machine to operate parameters. Some manufacturers, like Bernina, requires oiling on a regular basis, and in their manual, they explain exactly where to oil. Singer featherweights, which building, you have to oil frequently, and there are places the oil. On most lock and brush, they want us to oil at all. The dealer is the machine, which is about. So a little bandwidth problem here was for what we get. Working on it. Where do you net? You can get the DZ. See, a little difficult. Just bear with us a minute. Roy working on it.
Hi everyone, today we're going to go over on how you can go and post your great and beautiful designs and tag our hashtags. So let's follow the following steps. First of all, you're going to go into your Facebook page, and on your Facebook page you're going to see in the middle portion that it's going to ask you what's on your mind. In there, select photo or video. It's going to ask you if you want to publish this post publicly to your friends and all the other options that you see in front of your screen. In there, you're going to have to make sure to go public, because this way we're going to be able to actually see the post on our end. Then you select done. Once you select done, it's going to ask you what you want to post. So in there, you're going to click on add photo or video, and then upload the photo of the design that you want us to take a look at. And in there, you're going to type down a brief description or whatever description you feel like using for your design. And then you're going to use our hashtags #DimeSoLong, and or you could also use on the house. We would always recommend using both at the same time because it makes things a lot easier for us to find your beautiful designs. Once you finish creating your post, click post, and that's it. Just a couple of tips also for you to use these hashtags. Make sure that you leave no spaces between the words you're using on each individual hashtag, and also do not leave any spaces between the hashtag itself and the words that follow. And that's it. Thank you for watching.
So we're going to, if you could just hang a moment, we're our route so basic, could just there, and the next broadcast. Okay. See you.